Welcome back to episode 4 of Nap Time. On this episode, we're just going to be talking Eagles and only Eagles as the Eagles are back for the regular season, and we're just going to recap their first game. We're going to talk about all over the NFL and preview next week's game. Sorry about the long hiatus in between this episode and the last episode. I've been moving into college, but I'm back, and I should be back to uploading weekly, but let's get into it. Eagles football is back, and they started off on the right foot this season, starting off 1-0, defeating the much improved Detroit Lions. And we're going to go over the game a little bit. So, first off, starting off, I want to talk about this Lions team. I think this Lions team has the possibility to make the playoffs in the next 3 to 4 years. This team looked very impressive out there against an Eagles defense that's projected to be top 5, top 10 range. I mean, they put up 35 points. I mean, they looked very good. Their running game was really good. Obviously, they do have a very good O line, but in my opinion, the Eagles have a better D line than the Lions do O line. And the Lions just ran all over the Eagles. I mean, DeAndre Swift, he finished with 144 rushing yards. Jamal Williams got 11 carries, but he only got 28 yards. But he had 2 touchdowns, 2 short touchdowns. I mean, that's really it from him. But starting off the game, I mean, Lions got first ball, and I mean, they marched right down the field. They just made it look easy. I think DeAndre Swift started the game off with like a 40-yard run, maybe it was. It was something along those lines. Yeah, it was a 50-yard run from him. So they just marched right down the field on the Eagles, and they went up 7-0 early. Then Eagles, like their first, it took them a few drives to get the offense going, but they finally got it going. And Jalen Hurts got a 1-yard touchdown run to tie the game up. And then from there, it slowly became more Eagles. Miles Sanders got his first touchdown in 2 seasons. He has more touchdowns already this year than he did last year. He scored on a 1-yard run, and then so that put them up 14-7. And then James Bradbury, new accusation, new pickup, new free agency signing. He had a pick six off of a deflection from another new free agency signing, who I think is one of the most underrated free agency signings of the season, and that's Kaiser White. Kaiser White tipped it, went into Bradbury's hands. Bradbury took it back all the way. I mean, this team looked very good in that second quarter. They outscored the Lions 24-7 in the second quarter, and DeAndre Swift scored on a fourth down conversion from the Lions on fourth and two from the 7. So he scored there, and Eagles were able to march up the field off a beautiful pass from Jalen Hurts to AJ Brown, who was dominant. I'll get into that in just a second. But Jake Elliott then kicked the field goal, and Eagles went into the half up 24-14. So then they started off on the right foot. Kenneth Gainwell scored a touchdown, put them up 31-14, and then the Lions came back. They scored again. Amon-Ra St. Brown had a touchdown, and then Boston Scott had a touchdown. So they have 4 different players with a rushing touchdown in this game. And then from there, it got a little bit sketchy in the fourth quarter. They cut it to 38-28. They cut it to 10. And then DJ Chark had a nice little catch over Darius Slay, which I think was a little bit of a push-off, but they didn't call it. DJ Chark scored the touchdown, made it 38-35. Eagles minus 4.5, bettors and 5.5, whatever people had. They took a brutal beat there, but from there on, there was no more scoring. Eagles got a clutch fourth down conversion, and they held on to win the game 38-35 in a high-scoring battle. So there's a lot to talk about in this game. Obviously, it's week 1, so the defense didn't look great out there against a Jared Goff-led Lions but again, like I said, this team is still improving, and they're much better than they were last year. I think they're just going to keep getting better, but from here on out, I mean, that defense has got to be better. I mean, you can't allow 35 points and expect to win every single game, but I mean, they did it this time, and the offense looked solid. They were marching down the field. Jalen Hurts didn't look great, but he didn't look bad. For Jalen Hurts, it was more of a one read and run. So if he would look, if he didn't have his first read, then he would tend to just run. And when he tried to run, sometimes he got nowhere. Sometimes he got a good like 10, 15 yards. But honestly, he didn't look fantastic, but he definitely looked a little bit better. And it's a lot easier with guys like AJ Brown out there on the field as well, who's one of the best receivers in this league. But I think Jalen Hurts is going to keep improving, and like we said before when I was with Kenny, he's the most important Eagle going into this season. I mean, this entire season relies on him and what he can do. Give me 1 second here, though. Sad. Just had to plug in my mic. But like I said, um, Jalen Hurts, most important Eagle this entire season, does rely on him. And if he can improve his passing ability and keep that running game still strong. So, Eagles were the number one rushing offense last year, and they looked like that this year. I mean, they looked fantastic on the ground. I think they, let me take a look. They had a total of 216 rushing yards on the ground and 243 passing yards from Jalen Hurts. He only took one sack, which is very impressive, honestly. I think it came towards the end of the game, but the O line looked fantastic, only allowing one sack to a decent Lions pass rush, but that was amazing. 18 to 32 for Jalen Hurts and Sanders, who came out with 13 carries, 96 yards, and then a touchdown as well. Jalen Hurts, who had 17 carries. Hold up 1 second again. Like I said, the rushing game, the rushing attack looked very good, especially from Sanders and Hurts. Gainwell got 5 carries for 20 yards. Boston Scott only got 4 carries. I mean, this is a very split backfield. You're not gonna see that game every single time for Miles Sanders this year, I don't think. But he did have a very solid game. He had a few catches, and like I said, we're gonna look at the receiving yards here. I mean, AJ Brown just led everyone here. I mean, 10 catches for 155 yards. He was dominant. He was open almost every play. It felt like. I mean, he played as advertised, is what I've seen. But 10 catches, 155 yards. He set the record for most uh, receiving yards in a game in their first game by an Eagle. So he's huge. We knew he was going to be a big pickup when we traded for him on draft night. So that's huge that he can come out and do that. Hopefully, we could see that all season. And then a few touchdowns as well. Goddard, 3 catches, 60 yards. I mean, not bad. But besides that, nobody else had over 15. Gainwell had 2 for 12. Sanders had 2 for 9. Pascal, 1 for 7. The one that stands out, though, is the fact that Devontae Smith did not have a catch. He only had 4 targets. I mean, that's unacceptable. You can't. Obviously, Devontae Smith is going to get his in the future games. But Devontae Smith having no catches in a game, the guy you drafted in the first round last year at the 11th pick, I believe it was, having no catches in his first game in his second year, I mean, that's unacceptable. You're going to, obviously, like I just said, it's not going to happen every single game, but you can't be having that in the first game. But, like, again, it's the first game, so this offense is still just getting settled in, getting ready for the new season. I think this offense is going to become more and more dominant as the season goes on, and I think the defense is just going to play much, much better too. Because the defense in this game looked really bad, allowing a total of 181 rushing yards, which 144 of those came from DeAndre Swift. And Jared Goff, he threw 37 passes. He wasn't that good this game. Like, not really at all. He had more passing touchdowns than Jalen Hurts, obviously, but wasn't enough points to get the job done. He had a pick. 49.7 QB rating. He did not have a good game. His stats might look all right, but he did not have that good of a game. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 8 catches for 64 yards and a touchdown. Good fantasy day, but DJ Chark, most of his yards came off that one catch. He really just had like 3 for 27 before that last catch. Finished with 4 for 52 and a touchdown. TJ Hawkinson was really nowhere to be seen. Um, I mean, he had 4 for 38. He was all right. He had a pretty big catch. I remember. I think it was in like the third quarter. But I think and then DeAndre Swift 3 catches for 31 yards. But yeah, this Eagles team. I mean, it's always nice to start off on the right foot. You love starting off the season 1-0, and especially now, I think this division's just got much easier to seal up with Dak Prescott being out for 6 to 8 weeks. Because I don't think the Giants and Commanders are that good. They both won, but I don't think they're that good. I don't think they're the real deal out at all. And the Cowboys are already 0-1, and they just lost their quarterback. So I think this division could just got a hell of a lot easier for the Eagles to seal up. So moving on next week, week two, you got the Vikings, and it's the home opener, Monday Night Football. And I'm excited for this game. I think the Vikings are a very good team. I didn't pick them to win the NFC North, but they looked very good against the Packers. We'll get into that game later. They dominated the Packers on both sides of the ball. Justin Jefferson, obviously, still, I still hate the fact that the Eagles didn't take him. I think every Eagles fan is pissed about that still. But you see, he gets his first shot at the Eagles since then, I believe it is. But Eagles are projected to win in this one, and I'm excited to see what this game can hold. And I really don't know what they're going to do about Justin Jefferson. I think they're going to send a lot of pressure after Kirk Cousins. He's not very good under pressure, so I think that's something that's going to happen. But then at the same time, that rushing defense didn't look good last week. So then Dalvin Cook, that's where he comes into the mix. You're going to have to contain him as well as Justin Jefferson. Where does Jonathan Gannon come in, and where can he make a stop? I think Jonathan Gannon's name. I check myself. But where does Gannon come in, and what's he going to focus on? I'm assuming he would focus on Justin Jefferson. I think he's a top 3 wide receiver in this league. But I think you have to also take into the fact that Dalvin Cook is a top 5, top 10 running back in this league as well. And you're really going to have to lock down on him too. So it's just a mix of which one you're going to choose. You're going to have to try to contain both. And then the offensive end, Jalen Hurts is going to need to step up as a passer more. This Vikings defense looked good against the back-to-back MVP, Aaron Rodgers. Looked great against him. Held him to no touchdowns, I believe, maybe. No, they got one touchdown. It was a rushing touchdown, though. But, a back-to-back MVP. Obviously, he did this last year, week one. Week one's the biggest lie ever. So week one last year, Packers struggled. I think they lost like 38-3 to the Saints. But this week, I don't know the final score. I'll get into it. But it wasn't a close game at all. So the Vikings blew him out. Justin Jefferson went nuclear. He had like 39 fantasy points, but he had like 10 catches, 179 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's insane, and he's going to prove why he's the best wide receiver in this league this season. So I'm curious as to where this game will go. I think this will be a really good game, and especially in the home crowd. I don't know if the Vikings are ready for this home crowd because it's the home opener of a very talented team that has high expectations. So I think it is going to be loud in the link, and especially on Monday night, that stadium's going to be packed. I think the Eagles will ride on that momentum. Earlier in the season, or not in the season, earlier, I think it was episode 2, I think I predicted the Vikings to actually come into Philly and beat the Eagles. And I don't know if I still stand by that, but I still see it as a possibility. Obviously, me being biased, I think the Eagles will win, but I think it's 50-50 right now between who wins. So for Monday night, guess we're just going to have to see. But for, the past game, week one, I think your MVP of that game, I really got to say, is James Bradbury. I didn't really see anybody that really stood out in that game, honestly, besides Bradbury's pick six. Maybe you can say Hurts, but I don't think it was Hurts, honestly. But you could say James Bradbury on the defensive end and AJ Brown on the offensive end. But because AJ Brown, he was catching everything that was thrown at him. He had 13 targets, 10 catches, 155 yards. Caught a beautiful deep ball at the end of the second half or end of the first half from Jalen Hurts. I think that was Hurts' best throw of the game. But yeah, now that I think about it, I think AJ Brown's more the MVP of this game. But looking around the league, so obviously Bills Rams kicked off this season. It was a blowout. Bills just destroyed defending champs, blew up in that second half. 31-10 victory. and Stafford just didn't look good. That team didn't look good, but the Bills looked great. Josh Allen, the MVP favorite, looked fantastic. He played a perfect game besides the two picks. We don't talk about those though because I have him in fantasy, so we don't talk about those two picks. But he looked amazing in that game. He was finding his guys. He was getting Stephon Diggs wide open. He was getting Gabriel Davis. And when he needed to, he was escaping the pocket and running. I mean, almost he was outstanding in that game. Saints Falcons, and it wouldn't be an NFL season without the Falcons blowing a double digit lead. I mean, they came out, they were up 16, I believe it was. Maybe it was 26-10, something like that. But they ended up losing the game. There was nobody really that special in that game. Kamara didn't really do anything. Winston looked solid. He had 269 passing yards, two touchdowns. Taysom Hill had a really, really long run, and he had a touchdown that one. He was actually the leading rusher for the Saints, and it seemed as if the report came out and Kamara was dealing with a rib injury during that game, so he was limited on touches. He only got 9 carries for 39 yards, didn't get a touchdown or anything. Jarvis Landry had a really solid game. He came out 7 catches, 114 yards. I mean, his New Orleans debut looked very good. Michael Thomas, his first game back in nearly 2 years, 5 catches, 57 yards, 2 touchdowns. Beautiful game from him. Fantasy owners that started him are happy. He might be the steal of the draft. Um, Olave, I think it's Olave, but he came out. His first game, 3 catches, 41 yards. I mean, people probably weren't expecting too much from him because they got these two other weapons. Thomas, when healthy, is a top 10 receiver, but he hasn't been healthy as of late. But now he's healthy and he's back to scoring his touchdowns. So you look on the Atlanta side of the ball. Marcus Mariota kind of played like Hurts, maybe I guess a worse version of the Hurts. But he had 215 passing yards, 0 touchdowns, zero interceptions. Actually, didn't get sacked once, so he didn't do too bad. Um, their rushing game was where it was at, 201 total rushing yards, and Cordero Patterson's picking up right where he left off. 22 carries, 120 yards, and a touchdown. Great game from him. Honestly, was not expecting that against a top three Saints defense. I mean, he ran all over them. And Mariota himself, he had 12 carries, 72 yards, and a touchdown. I mean, they had 2 rushing touchdowns. That was all their touchdowns. Young Wei Koo was really their entire offense. Only 2 touchdowns all game. I guess 4 field goals. So Young Wei Koo owners in fantasy are probably really happy. But Drake London in his first game, 5 catches, 74 yards. Not a bad debut for the rookie. I mean, people are expecting him to be the best receiver in the draft. He was the first receiver taken off the board. But there's a lot of competition in this wide receiver spot. There's Olave, there's London, there's Jameson Williams when he comes back. Jameson Williamson, I think. Um, Garrett Wilson, I believe, is a rookie. So there's a lot of competition. Kyle Pitts did not have the game that people were expecting him to. 2 catches for 19 yards. People have him their as the chance to be the best tight end in the league or have the best tight end season this season. But honestly, I'm not buying into that. Like, obviously, Kyle Pitts is once in a lifetime talent. He's very, very good. But I, I'm not buying into this fact that he's going to be the number one tight end this season. I think Travis Kelsey's still got that, and he still has to fight with guys like Kittle and Mark Andrews. But I'm just not seeing it. But that's it from the Falcons game. 49ers Bears. This game was boring. I mean, if you look at the weather in this game, this weather was ridiculous. It was flooded there on the field. Trey Lance. I'm not blaming the quarterbacks in this one. It probably was impossible to throw that ball. Trey Lance, 164 yards, no touchdowns, and an interception. They really just didn't have like any offense in this one. It was really like both defenses played really, really solid. Trey Lance had 13 carries for 54 yards. I still think Trey Lance is going to be really good, but in that weather, it was almost impossible to throw the ball. So Debo Samuel back to getting 8 carries, even though he didn't really want to, but he got 8 carries, 52 yards, and a touchdown. So that was their only touchdown in the game for the 49ers. And the Bears pulled off the upset, won 19-10. Bears only threw the ball 17 times, and Fields finished with 121 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception. 99 rushing yards from the Bears. Khalil Herbert was actually the leading rusher in this game with the least amount of carries. He had 9 carries for 45 yards and a touchdown. David Montgomery had 17 carries, got 26 yards. He didn't really do much. I mean, like I said, there wasn't much offense in this game. I think there was two total. There's three touchdowns from the Bears. Khalil Herbert had one. Dante Pettis was the leading receiver, and he had one catch for 51 yards, and it turned into a touchdown. And Equanimous St. Brown, the two St. Brown brothers, both had a touchdown within a minute of each other. He had another touchdown, one catch for 18 yards. But I mean, this game really didn't have much. Like this was a boring game. It was 19-10, and Bears pull off the upset. I think the Bears are still obviously the Bears are still an improving team, but this is probably going to be the worst season in a while. But I think maybe like 7 to 10 years, maybe this team could be a playoff team, maybe a little bit closer. But honestly, I don't really know because they are really poorly ran. But moving on, Steelers Bengals. This game was crazy. So T.J. Watt hurt with a torn pec. He'll be out 6 weeks. If he chooses not to get surgery, which it's looking like he's not going to get surgery, so he'll be out most likely 6 weeks. Probably going to the IR. Mitchell Trubisky in his Steelers debut, 194 yards and a touchdown. Not much here. It kind of turned Claypool into like a Debo Samuel type player. He had 6 carries for 36 yards. Najee didn't do much. He went out with an injury as well. Fryermuth seemed to be like the leading receiver here. 5 for 75. Deontay Johnson at 755. Deontay Johnson actually had a crazy catch. I'll put a clip of it up.
Trubisky dials up a deep one. Oh, tremendous Deontay Johnson, but he was alone.
But that catch was absolutely crazy. He grabbed it with the left hand over a defender, kept his feet in bounds on the sideline. It was just a ridiculous catch. Bengals, Joe Burrow looked on a Super Bowl hangover. He had 5 total turnovers, I believe. I believe he lost a fumble and he had 4 interceptions. But he finished with 338 yards and 2 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Threw the ball 53 times. So he kind of stepped up when it mattered. He led a drive down the field to tie the game in the final seconds. Jamar Chase is picking up right where he left off. 10 catches, 129 yards and a touchdown. He looked dominant in that. This duo could be one of the best this season. But he had a touchdown in the final seconds to what people thought was win them the game. But Minka Fitzpatrick actually blocked the extra point or I don't know if he blocked it or if they just missed it. I'll have to take a look, but I believe Minka Fitzpatrick blocked the extra point to take the lead. So then the game went into overtime. Minka Fitzpatrick also had pick 6 in this game. I think he's one of the best. I think he's a top 3 safety in the league. I think people disrespect him a lot. I think he's a top 3 safety in this league. But moving on into overtime, there was just missed kick after missed kick in this one. I mean, this was ridiculous. You look back and forth. Steelers got ball first in overtime. They started off with a punt, and then Bengals had a chance to win it, and they came on, and they missed the. I'm trying to find it here. Yeah, so McPherson, who was very clutch in the playoffs the entire season, had multiple game-winning kicks. He missed the game-winning field goal against the Steelers to win it. And then the Steelers get it back, and then they come down and miss a field goal as well. 55-yarder from Boswell missed, and then Bengals had a chance to go ahead and win it, and they punted it away. And this crazy, crazy game came to an end after Boswell drilled a 53-yarder for the win at the buzzer of overtime. So if he would have missed it, would have finished in the tie. That would have been the second tie of the week, actually. So, yeah, I mean, it was a crazy, crazy game. Steelers start off 1-0. The Bengals, people are overreacting on the Bengals. They're saying like they're not going to make the playoffs. And I could see it, but it's only week 1. So there's still a lot of time for teams like the Bengals to get back in it. If you remember last year, they had a pretty cold start and they ended up winning the AFC North. Obviously, a lot of other factors played into that, but then they went on through the playoffs and won that. So, I mean, a lot of things can happen in the next 17 weeks. So, there's plenty of time for the Bengals to turn it around. They only start off 0-1. We already talked about Eagles, Lions, Patriots, Dolphins. Just another boring game. Patriots only finished with 7 points. Mac Jones went out with an injury. He had a back injury. I don't think it's very significant. I think he has a chance to play this weekend. But it was 20-7 win. Mac Jones 213 for touchdown and interception. Not much there. He had a 9.7 QB rating. That's not very good though. Damian Harris, he didn't really do much. I mean, there was nothing for the Patriots offense at all this game. Tonga Viola, I don't even know how to say his name, but he actually didn't have a terrible game. 270 yards and a touchdown. There were a few bad throws that he had. Tyreek Hill era starts in Miami, and he finishes the game with 8 for 94. So he had a very good receiving game. I mean, you can't complain with 8 for 94. Jalen Waddle picking up where he left off, 4 for 69 and a touchdown. He had a really long touchdown. I believe it was 42 yards. I think it was a long touch. I think it was a 42-yard touchdown. But I mean, these two receivers, Tua gets his weapons and makes him look like a solid quarterback. But if you look at some of the throws he had, some of the throws were really good. Tyreek Hill saved him from getting an interception by making a beautiful catch, and then he started off the season really bad with a terrible throw. I mean, it was thrown to absolutely nobody. But this game was really boring. There's not much to say about that one. Ravens Jets, another boring game. It was just Ravens the entire time. Lamar Jackson had 3 touchdown passes. Didn't really have much on the ground going, but he was pretty good in the air. He had 213 for 3 touchdowns. He only completed 17 out of 30 passes. I mean, it really wasn't that special. He had a 55-yard touchdown to Rashad Bateman. Duvernay had 2 touchdowns. Mark Andrews didn't do much. He had 5 for 52. People are expecting him to be the best tight end in football this season, but I don't know, honestly. I think Travis Kelce is still going to be the best uh, tight end in football. But Jets, Flacco threw the ball 59 times. Jesus. I actually did not know that until right now. He had 309 yards and a touchdown and an interception. Um, Garrett Wilson looked really good. He's the rookie receiver for the Jets. Corey Davis, he looks solid. Michael Carter had 7 catches. People really love this Brees Hall kid. He only had 6 carries for 23 yards, and he had 6 catches for 38 yards. I mean, looked like Joe Flacco was really dumping the ball off, but that Jets offense just had nothing. But again, they're still building. Zach Wilson's out for a few more weeks, so he'll be back soon. Maybe that'll switch up everything. I don't know though, but they. I don't want to say they looked awful, but they looked pretty bad. But it's also the Ravens who are expected to be one of the best teams in football this season, so it's hard to give the Jets credit here, and it's hard to give the Ravens credit for only scoring 24 points. I feel like they could have had way more on the Jets, but that's just another boring game. Jaguars Commanders was actually a pretty solid game. Wentz in his Commanders debut looked very, very good. I think he finished with 318 yards and 4 touchdowns, tossed 2 picks, but he made up for it with 313 yards, 4 touchdowns. He made up for it. He had a really, really good game, in my opinion. So his leading receiver was Antonio Gibson, but he really loved Jahan Dotson and Curtis Samuel. Terry McLaurin actually only had 2 catches, but he had a long touchdown. It was a 49-yard touchdown. Curtis Samuel had 8 catches for 55 yards and a touchdown. Jahan Dotson, the rookie out of Penn State, 3 catches, 40 yards, 2 touchdowns, though. So Wentz really likes this receiving core that he has. I mean, he had a really good game. Gibson, I was not expecting him to have 7 catches, obviously, but he had a solid game. I mean, Wentz, this is just not what I was expecting from Wentz in his first game with the Commanders. I was honestly expecting him to struggle a little bit, but he looked really, really good in this game. Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence didn't look terrible. He had 275 yards, a touchdown, and interception. This dude is expected to be generational talent, and he's not looking like it at all so far. Last season was really bad for him. Obviously, it was his first year under Urban Meyer. That whole Jacksonville situation got messy really quick. But then James Robinson, he came in. He had 11 carries for 66 yards and a touchdown. Etienne, coming off a torn Achilles from his rookie year, he had four carries for 47 yards. He dropped a touchdown though, I believe. And Christian Kirk, he had 6 catches for 117 yards. His Jaguar debut, he looked solid. He looked really good. Zay Jones is at he had 6 catches, 65 yards. I mean, this game was pretty solid. It was pretty back and forth. Of course, the MVP of this game is Carson Wentz. He looked fantastic. I mean, It was I'm a Carson Wentz fan. I'm happy to see him succeed, but I hope he doesn't do that when he plays the Eagles. Obviously, Browns Panthers Baker Mayfield's revenge game. A lot of people looking forward to this one. Jacoby Brissett. I mean, you can't expect much from him. He only had 147 passing yards and a touchdown. Nick Chubb ran all over the Panthers, though, as he had 22 carries for 141 yards. He was he is a top five running back in this league, I believe, and he proved why with 141 yards. Kareem Hunt, the best backup running back in football, probably going to get traded somewhat through the year. I think he requested a trade, and I think they're working on trading him. Eagles are actually in on those talks, I believe, but Kareem Hunt, 11 carries, 46 yards. He had a touchdown. He also had a receiving touchdown. He had two touchdowns this game. He looked really good. Um, but yeah, you can't really expect much from that Browns offense. I don't know where this Browns team is going to go this year. They could make the playoffs, but they could also horribly miss it and not even come close. I I think they'll barely miss the playoffs if anything. But if Jacoby Brissett can lead them to a pretty solid record through the first 11 games, I think this team is very capable of making the playoffs once Deshaun Watson comes back, depending on the spot that they're in. But Panthers, offense, I mean, Baker Mayfield, 236 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. He was sacked four times. Myles Garrett got to him once. Christian McCaffrey didn't look like the Christian McCaffrey we all know. He only had 10 carries for 33 yards and a touchdown. He only had two catches. So I have him in fantasy. So I was kind of disappointed to see that, but I'm happy he got the touchdown. But obviously, he's not the type to only have two catches. Usually, you see him with like seven catches for like 70 yards and 10 carries for maybe or like 20 carries for like another 90, 100 yards. But I mean, this team looked odd. They had the Browns where they wanted them, but then the rookie kicker, Cam York, I believe his name is, came down. They let it drive. He came down and drilled a 58 yarder for the win. So Panthers honestly didn't look great, but they didn't look terrible. The team's heading in the right direction. I think Baker Mayfield has a chance to be their guy. I'm not a Baker Mayfield fan. I don't think he's that great. I don't think he's all that. Definitely was not worth the number one pick, but I think he has the ability to be good. Just he just needs his weapons. DJ Moore, three catches, 43 yards. This dude has gone through a hell of a lot of quarterbacks, and everybody says like once he gets his better quarterback, he's going to be playing better. Last year he was very good under Sam Darnold and whoever else was throwing. He had 1,000 yards, and he only had three catches for 43. But I think he's going to be really good this year. I think he has the ability to put up like a 1,200 yard season along with like 7, 8 touchdowns. But first week, obviously, everybody's still just getting adjusted. So I think this Panthers team could be good maybe next 2 to 3 years, but I don't think that it's going to be their year. Browns, like I said, I don't know where they're going to go. Colts Texans, I don't really know what else to say. I mean, Texans had a 17-point lead. Colts Colts came back and they could just not score. So it was kind of weird. In overtime, there was a missed field goal, a punt, and then the game was over. Rodrigo Blankenship actually missed a 42 yarder. Wouldn't have been for the win, but it would have been like to give them the lead, and then the Texans would have had their drive. But from the, I mean, it was back and forth. Matt Ryan had his debut. He looked pretty solid. 362 yards, threw the ball 50 times though. Touchdown and interception. Jonathan Taylor's just picking right back up where he left off, proving why he's the best running back in the league and the number one pick in fantasy. He had 161 rushing yards and a touchdown. He looked really good. Obviously, one of the best O lines in football, maybe the best O line in football. And I think this team takes the division pretty easily, but I think the AFC South is the worst division in football now. After all that, none of them won, and two of them played each other. These are the two that played each other, the Colts and Texans. But they're in first right now, and I think they'll finish in first. Michael Pittman, everybody's expecting this to be his breakout year, and he showed exactly why it might be. 9 catches, 121 yards, and a touchdown. He came he came out with a spark, and he dominated. Seems to be Matt Ryan's favorite target, and teams are going to have to start treating Michael Pittman like a star. Texans, Brandon Cooks had 7 catches for 82 yards, that is. OJ Howard only had 2 catches, but they were both touchdowns. Davis Mills, Texans believe this kid is the future, and honestly, I can see it. I think it's a possibility. He might be better than Trevor Lawrence. And a lot of people say that. He might be better than Zach Wilson. A lot of people say he might be the best QB in the draft, but I don't know, honestly. We got a small glimpse of it last year, and he played really well last year and the chances he got, but it was interesting to see. Moving on to the 4 o'clock games and an upset. Giants over Texans. Giants came down the field. Brian Dable, I don't know how to say his last name, Dable, but they got a win in his first game as a coach against the Titans. Daniel Jones, 185 yards, 2 touchdowns, and an interception, and he also lost a fumble. I think this is Daniel Jones' last year, and this is his prove it year. So I don't know what he's gonna do. I don't know if he's gonna come out with some type of fire, but he wasn't good in this game, honestly. I don't think he was great at all, actually. But I mean, he wasn't too bad. He only threw 4 incompletions, which is pretty solid. But I mean, the entire offense was carried by Saquon Barkley. He had 168 rushing yards. He was a leading rusher in Week 1. He had a touchdown as well. I had him in fantasy. He kind of helped me win my game. But he had a long run, 68 yards. He had multiple long runs in this game, and he's coming out with a vengeance too. So it was a bit of a different thing from Daniel Jones and Saquon. This is their like prove it years. Saquon proved why. Daniel Jones, on the other hand, not exactly, but still week 1, still plenty of time. I think Saquon has the ability to be the best running back in football this season, and he came out looking like it in this week 1. Sterling Shepard, 2 catches, 71 yards and a touchdown. He had a long 65-yard touchdown. That's where most of Daniel Jones' yards came from. Saquon Barkley had 6 catches as well. There wasn't really much on the receiving end for New York. Like I said, Daniel Jones only had 188 passing yards actually, and 2 touchdowns. They so on that final drive, it was 20-13. Giants marched down the field. They scored a game-tying touchdown. I don't know how to say the dude's last name, but some random scored a touchdown, and they elected. Wait a minute. It was actually 20 to yeah, it was 20-13. So they elected to go for 2, and they actually got it with Saquon Barkley on some shovel pass from Daniel Jones. So that gave them the lead. Then the Titans marched down the field pretty quickly, got in the field goal range, and I believe Suckup's their kicker, and he missed it. He pushed it left, and Giants held on and won this game 21-20. Tannehill didn't look too bad, 266 yards, 2 touchdowns. I don't think he's that great of a quarterback. He got a pretty big contract, and I don't think he's worth it at all. But he's getting up there in age too, so the Titans are soon going to be going into the rebuild. Especially if they don't succeed this year, it'll come much sooner. But Derrick Henry, 21 carries, 82 yards, coming back from injury. That's not the Derrick Henry everybody knows. Everybody knows Derrick Henry for rushing for like 160 yards a lot. Times he does that, but he only had 82. Giants kind of did a good job on him. Wasn't much on the receiving end. Hilliard had not most of their yards, but he had both their receiving touchdowns. And Phillips was their leading receiver. This is going to be a new team without A.J. Brown there, but they have Treylon Burks. And then Robert Woods only had 1 catch. They traded for him, and he only had 1 catch for 13 yards. But this team really didn't look that great. I don't think this Titans team is going to be that good this year. I think they have a 9-8, 8-9 finish. Maybe a wild card team, but I don't know. I doubt it. Honestly, I think that's the Colts division to lose. Packers Vikings, like I said, it was a blowout. It's 23-7. Justin Jefferson, like I said, went nuclear. 9 catches, 184 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's going to be tough to stop for the Eagles, but hopefully they can do a good job on him. Kirk Cousins, 277 yards, 184 of those were Justin Jefferson, and 2 touchdowns. Both of them were Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson is out to show why he's the best receiver in football. Dalvin Cook didn't look too bad, 20 carries for 90 yards. Like I said, Eagles are going to have to pick and choose which one they want to stop. Adam Thielen, he's getting up there in age. He won't be much good for much longer. He had 3 catches for 36 yards. So this Vikings team looked pretty scary out there against a Packers defense that people were actually putting at the best in the league, which I didn't really understand as to why, because they just didn't prove it at all, and I didn't understand why. I didn't think their defense was that good, honestly. But looking at the offensive side for Green Bay, it was just a struggle. Aaron Rodgers, 195 yards and an interception. He was he was struggling without Devontae Adams. AJ Dillon had their lone touchdown, and it was like a short run, but AJ Dillon was their leading receiver. There's a crazy stat: Devontae Adams had more receiving yards than the entire Packers wide receiver core, and this team just didn't look great at all. I mean, they struggled all game. Vikings defense looked very good and scary, and they shut down Aaron Rodgers, the back-to-back MVP. So there's not much to say about that game except for the fact that the Vikings just dominated. Chiefs Cardinals, high scoring game that everybody was expecting, but it was a blowout. Uh, Chiefs won 44-21, and Patrick Mahomes looked like the MVP. 360 yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Uh, Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know how to say his last name, but he was actually the leading rusher in this game. I believe he's a rookie. He had a touchdown this one, but I mean, this offense looked like it always does. It looks scared. Travis Kelsey, 8 catches, 121 yards, a touchdown, best tight end in football, not even close. Juju Smith Schuster, 6 catches, 79 yards. Pretty solid debut from him. I think he's going to be pretty solid this year. I think he's going to be have a pretty good year after his struggles last year. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 3 catches, 32 yards, 2 touchdowns. Some people hate him in fantasy football, but he started off the year pretty good. The past 2 years, he hasn't been great, but this game was pretty solid from him. Not much else to say. I mean, McCole Hardman had another touchdown. Fortson, I don't know who that is, but he had a 1 yard touchdown. But yeah, Mahomes looked like the MVP. Him and Josh Allen, I think, are going to have a MVP race for the ages this year. Cardinals offense, I mean, there really wasn't much at all. They cut it to like 21-14, maybe. I think that was the score at one point, or maybe it was 14-7. But from there on out, it was never close again. Um, at halftime, it was 23-7, and then from there, it was just Chiefs all the way from there. But it was a blow. Kyler Murray, 193 yards, 2 touchdowns. He got a bag this offseason, so hopefully he can prove. I'm a big Kyler Murray fan, so I'm hoping he can prove that he deserved that contract. Hollywood Brown, 4 catches, 43 yards, and a touchdown in his Cardinals debut. I was expecting him to have some sort of punishment for his DUI that he had, but he didn't get one, so whatever. Zach Ertz actually had a touchdown, former Eagle, but there really wasn't much coming from the Arizona offense against a very, very good Chiefs team that's probably that has a good chance to make it to the Super Bowl again. Raiders Chargers. This one, the scores tells a different story. I think the Chargers really controlled this game the entire way through. Justin Herbert looked very, very good in this game as well. 279 yards, 3 touchdowns. I think Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Justin Herbert could have it could be a battle between those three for the MVP award. But Justin Herbert looked very good in this game. And this new Chargers team, they play Chargers Chiefs collide on Thursday Night Football. I'm excited for that game. I think that's going to be a great game. But Eckler didn't look Eckler didn't do too much. He wasn't really a big factor in this game. Keenan Allen was on pace for a really good game, but he actually came down with an injury, a hamstring injury, I believe. And he's out for Thursday Night Football as well, but he had 4 catches, 66 yards. Really wasn't that many normal people catching a touchdown. D. Carter, I don't know who that is for the Chargers, but he scored a touchdown. Gerald Everett, their new signing, their new starting tight end, he scored a touchdown for the Chargers as well. And Horvath, I'm not sure who that is either. He scored a touchdown, but the Chargers look good. Devontae Adams, his debut looked really good for the Raiders. 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. He's the best receiver in football, in my opinion, and he's proving as to why he didn't just need Aaron Rodgers. But Derek Carr, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 turnovers, though, 3 interceptions. I mean, this Chargers defense, I think, is going to be one of the best in football, and they're showing as to why against a pretty solid Raiders offense. And I think the Raiders will do better, but I still think they have a good chance of finishing last in the best division of football, which is the AFC West. I mean, this division is stacked to the core. All these teams are playoff caliber teams, but one of them can't make it, so it's going to be insane. That AFC West race is going to be fun to watch this year. And we close out Sunday with a boring, boring Sunday night football game. Buccaneers win 19-3. Dak goes down with an injury. There was nothing going. Mike Evans scored a touchdown. Leonard Fournette ran all over the Cowboys. Cowboys had 3 points. Only team not that failed to score a touchdown in week one. it's funny to see the Cowboys fail, which I'm not surprised and I'm happy by. And then moving on to Monday to close out the week, Russell Wilson's return to Seattle, and a lot of people were excited to watch this game, and he got shouted at with boos, and well, they lost too. So Russell Wilson looked pretty solid though, 340 yards and a touchdown. Really wasn't much going for the rushing game, but Javante Williams had 11 catches, which fantasy owners, I'm sure they're happy with. Jerry Judy, 4 catches, 102 yards and a touchdown. Most of his yards came off that 67-yard touchdown. It was a bad throw by Russell Wilson, but it turned it into a touchdown. He had a pretty good game. Cortland Sutton, people are expecting a huge year from him. 4 catches, 72 yards, no touchdowns. Only only one touchdown came from Denver, and Denver kind of I don't really understand, but they lost the ball. They fumbled back to back possessions on the 1 yard line. Javon Melvin Gordon did the first time, and then Javante Williams did the second time. Melvin Gordon has always had fumbling issues. I don't know about Javante Williams. It seems like he might have fumbling issues, but I mean that's unacceptable from your running backs. And also something else that happened in this game: 4th and 5 with like 50 seconds to go. This team Broncos kind of let the clock wind down, and then they called timeout, and they brought on McManus to kick a 64-yarder instead of trusting their QB that they paid 200 million for to go out and get this first down. That's the moments he's meant for, and it was a chance for the win. And McManus pushed it left, he missed it. Seahawks won. I mean, a 64-yarder. I mean, you can't really expect that to go in. You should, of course, if I'm the Broncos, I think you trust your quarterback there. You paid him that money for a reason, so why not trust him? Seahawks, I mean, Geno Smith looked fantastic in this game. I was not expecting that. He had 195 yards, 23 to 28, 2 touchdowns. I mean, he looked fantastic. Parkinson had a touchdown for them. Disley had the other touchdown. I mean, rushing game wasn't really there. Their offense might not. Like, obviously, they only had 17 points, but I mean, this offense looked pretty solid. Geno Smith looked pretty good. Seahawks, I think, finished last in the NFL still this season. But I mean, they looked very good in this game against the Broncos team that people are predicting to win the AFC West, which I don't think they will, obviously. But it was pretty solid. It was a pretty solid game, and it was boring, but it was also pretty solid. So looking ahead to week 2, looking forward to it. Chargers Chiefs Thursday night football. Jets Browns, not a very good game there. Commanders Lions again, not a very good game. Bucks Saints, I think that could be a good game. Brady's always struggled against the Saints in the regular season. Panthers Giants, not a good game at all either. Patriots Steelers, I think that has maybe a possibility to be a solid game. Colts Jags, not a good game. Dolphins Ravens, I think this could be a really good game. I think this could be a back and forth game, but I think the Ravens will take it in this one. I should probably be giving predictions for all these games, so let me go through again. Chargers Chiefs, I think the Chiefs will take it. Jets Browns, I think Browns will. Commanders Lions, I think Commanders will. Bucks Saints, I think Saints will. Just because of Brady's struggles against the Saints. Panthers Giants, I think Panthers. Patriots Steelers, I'll take Steelers. Colts Jags, I'll take Colts again. I mean, I really hope they could beat the Jags on the road this time around. They haven't been able to in the past few years, so Dolphins, Ravens, I'll take Ravens. I think two is not good enough, and I think the Ravens are really good on defense, and I think the Ravens are too good offensively for the Dolphins defense. Falcons, Rams, I'll take Rams. Seahawks, 49ers, I'll take 49ers there. Bengals, Cowboys, I'll take Bengals because Cowboys are gonna be starting Cooper Rush at quarterback, and obviously he's not good enough. Texans, Broncos, I'll take Broncos on that one. I think Texans aren't good. Cardinals, Raiders. I'll take Raiders on this one. I think the Cardinals will start out 0-2. But that one, I could be wrong on a lot of these, actually. Sunday Night Football, Bears, Packers. Give me Packers. Rodgers owns the Bears. I think that's a pretty obvious one. Titans, Bills. I'll take Bills by a million. Bills are maybe the most complete team in football, and I think the Titans are just going down, so I'll take Bills. Vikings, Eagles. Being biased, I'll take Eagles. Being unbiased, I'll take Eagles still. But yeah, I we have a solid week 2 slate. I think the Monday Night Football games are much better, and then you have Dolphins Ravens. I think those are the three best games. But looking back again at week one, I just want to give my top five performances. I think I think in no order. I think you have Pat. I think Patrick Mahomes is number one, in my opinion. I think he was the best player in football this week. I mean, he had five touchdowns and no interceptions, along with 360 yards. Number two, I'll give it to Josh Allen. I think if he didn't have those two picks, I would have given him number one. But he played a perfect game, 297 yards, three touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown as well. Number three, I'll go to Justin Jefferson on this one. I mean, like I said, he cooked that entire Packers secondary. I mean, he had a ridiculous game, nine catches, a lot of yards, and two touchdowns. Um, Number four, it kind of gets a little tougher. I'll give it to Justin Herbert. I think he had a very solid game. He was nearly perfect. He was just dotting up the Raiders. I think he had a very great game. Number five, I'll go Saquon Barkley. I mean, he ran all over the Titans and he just looked phenomenal and he looked fully healthy. Hopefully, we could. I like Saquon Barkley and hopefully we could see it from him all year just because he's on my fantasy team too. But honestly, those are my top five. I don't really see anybody else deserving of it besides those five. I think those five had ridiculous games. You can make an argument for Jonathan Taylor. He had a very good game as well. Same like nearly the same amount of rushing yards as Saquon, but I'll take Saquon over in this week. But yeah, let's that was week one of NFL.